What if EMPOLEON was in Gen 1 OU? I'm gonna be real, I have made so many different what if videos, and not once has EMPOLEON ever crossed my mind. What it won't be considered for a video. Even when talking about a Generation Jumble with only starter Pokemon, I never once thought about EMPOLEON. I'm not sure why, but today I was just looking through Gen 4 Pokemon, I saw it there, and I was like, wait, that's a Water and Steel type. That's actually pretty interesting. Because water on its own is already a pretty good type. You resist, obviously, water and also ice, which both are pretty important for Gen 1. One significantly more important than the other. However, you do have occasional surf from Starmie, and you always have surf from Slowbro, so resisting that is pretty good. But along with that, you're part Steel, so you quadruple resist Ice. You resist Psychic, and you resist Normal. Those are the three best types offensively in the game. And one could argue just as a whole. I'm sure you can probably make an argument for Ground and Electric being the third best type. But if I had to guess, most people would say Ice is the third best, along with Psychic and Normal. So we're already off to a pretty good start. You resist like three of the best types. You also have a neutrality to the grass, which isn't a big deal, but it does mean that Executor can't use tech coverage against you with Mega Drain, and Victory Bell's Razor Leaf isn't going to be like the most damning thing in the universe. At the very least, you're not scared of it. Unfortunately, you are weak to both Ground and Electric, but luckily, EMPOLEON just has a great move pool where it can take advantage of both of those. And by that I mean, think about the Thunderbolt users. You have Gengar, Jolteon, both of those you can use Earthquake for super effective damage, and both are weak on the physical side, meaning that even with 86 attack, you're 2-hit KOing them. So yeah, it's risky, especially with Jolteon, but you can fight back if you need to. And while Earthquake on Tauros is really bad, it's not a consistent 2-hit KO. So you can fight back too with your other moves. Although in that case, I would recommend avoiding it. And then Zapdos. I'm pretty sure Blizzard is almost a 2-hit KO, which I know is really bad, and it's probably the scariest thing you can face. But the fact that you can do good damage to it means that if it's paralyzed, you might have a chance. If you get a critical hit against anything strong against you, such as, again, Gengar, Jolteon, Zapdos, you might just be able to win. So, that's amazing. And along with Earthquake and Blizzard, Surf is kind of weird, because it's Stab. And you have an impressive 111 special attack. So that seems like what you would want to use immediately. But I feel like in most cases, Blizzard and Earthquake will be better. You have Swords Dance, and because of how tanky EMPOLEON is, it will definitely get free turns to go for that Swords Dance. And with that, suddenly things like Jolteon and Gengar just can't switch in on you, or even risk fighting you for the most part. Chansey and Jinx, Alakazam, all of these take a lot of good damage from Earthquake, and if you get 2 Swords Dance off, you're even better, and you can basically 1v1 anything in the format minus Zapdos. But Surf is so good, both for just stalling, because 24 power points is a lot, but also, even though it's Stab, as far as I'm concerned, it's more so a tech option for Rhydon exactly. Rhydon has Earthquake. It's not an OHKO, but it hurts. It hurts a lot. So EMPOLEON having a way to consistently OHKO Rhydon, that is already good in of itself. But along with that, it also just the threat of it means Rhydon probably always has to switch out, which in of itself gives EMPOLEON here a free chance to go for Swords Dance. Or if it does go for Surf, it'll probably do decent damage on whatever switches out. Because Stab with 111 special attack is pretty good. And while it doesn't have the best crit rate, it will happen occasionally. Speaking of its speed, I think it's fine. Because with 60 speed, at the bare minimum, you are outspeeding both Chansey and Executor. Executor will probably have to go for Sweet Powder anyways, but the fact that at the bare minimum, you can still get a powerful Blizzard off. Not to mention, it also makes you a good sweep sack against Executor, since Executor isn't really hurting you with Psychic, Double Edge, or even Mega Drain for that matter. So yeah, Cloyster is technically faster than you, but as a Water Steel type, you do not care about Blizzard or Clamps. Only Freezing, and Cloyster is not going to risk 8 valuable Blizzard power points, hoping to freeze Empoleon. And what do you know? Because Empoleon is part Steel type, it also resists Explosion. So, its existence already invalidates just both Cloyster, not Lapras, I guess that's Thunderbolt. But Cloyster and Rhydon, it's kind of funny. So overall, really good. I know Empoleon was good in its debut generation, and I'm pretty sure it was good for a time in Gen 9, but there's no doubt about it. Its height would have been in Gen 1 if you can put it in there. But that's enough of that. I am excited though for how this will do in Generation Jumble. I'm not sure when we're going to have the starter season, since for Season 4 we're adding the Hoenn starters, but still, should be fun. By the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about, join my Discord server, because I host tournaments based on my what if scenarios, and they're always a lot of fun. So let's just get into it, shall we? Starting off with the boy himself, we got Tauros, and luckily, Earthquake isn't a consistent 2 KO, which is still, like, you definitely want to avoid the matchup at all costs. But look at that, look how much damage Empoleon did to Tauros. Tauros with chip damage isn't always gonna beat Empoleon. Not only that, but Tauros can't afford to have a full-on battle with Empoleon if it needs to battle the enemy Tauros. I think I had this in bad matchup, but I think I need to move into the quick either way. Snorlax does beat Empoleon a lot easier. Higher attack means that the 2 KO is just guaranteed, but at the same time, Empoleon is still getting some good damage in on Snorlax here. So, maybe not that bad. And then you have Amnesialax. If it's Amnesialax with Ice Beam or Body Slam, or mix attacking Snorlax, you might just flat out win. You need Thunderbolt exactly to do any damage or to threaten Empoleon even remotely, which, yeah, fair enough. And I would imagine that would be more popular with Empoleon in the format. As you can probably tell, it is one of the best Pokemon you can have on your team. But still, even in those scenarios, Empoleon is still doing good damage to Snorlax. And obviously you would have teammates you can switch into. Chansey here only takes a 4th from unboosted Earthquake. But that's fine, because like I said, you have Sword Stance. So if it doesn't have Thunderbolt, I guess you're really scared of Paralysis. But with Paralysis, anything can be defeated. So I think this is overall pretty good, I would say. Like, I guess it does better than Earthquake Snorlax, but not as good as Snorlax without the proper coverage to take on Empoleon. And I think I would say this is better than Tauros. But all three of the big three, it's a big could go either way. But could go either way for very different reasons for all three of them. Tauros just can't really afford to take the damage despite being able to beat Empoleon. Snorlax lives and dies on the coverage. And Chansey here, it significantly changes on Paralysis luck, or more importantly, what Chansey's coverage moves are. If it's something like Ice Beam and Seismic Toss, Empoleon just wins, if it doesn't get unlucky. And some Pokemon, speaking of unlucky actually, with special drops and Paralysis, sure, Alakazam might be able to do something, but in general, I'd call this a great matchup for Empoleon. Empoleon can risk sending up Sword Stance, and if that happens, what's Alakazam really doing here? It's taking a lot of damage, and it can't really afford it. Obviously, Alakazam is either stalling a chance to your other Psychic types, or it's your late game cleaner. Which it can't really do that if it's being buried alive, because a Penguin is somehow able to create earthquakes, but both Arcanine and Hisuian Arcanine from like a few videos ago are not able to? How does a penguin make earthquakes, but a legendary dog can't? Can someone explain that to me? Especially when one of those dogs is a rock type and just has earth elemental powers? You're going to explain this in the comments, because I think it sounds pretty dumb. What do you think? Next up is Cloyster. And I already explained how this match goes the way it does. So, the only things new I can tell you is the fact that with max attack at 2-hit KOs, Cloyster with Earthquake, but I don't think 3 Sword Stance is necessary. Once you go for 2 Sword Stance, you're in the 800s. An extra 100 to put in 999, I would imagine is simply not worth it. So don't even bother with that, if you ask me. Also, can someone tell me if Magma Armor works in Gen 1 custom games? It seems like half of the abilities don't work as they are supposed to. So things like Serene Grace and Intimidate work, but other abilities do not. But if Magma Armor does in fact work in Gen 1 custom games, that's actually very helpful for me, since that means that I can make these replays without having to worry about the Pokemon getting frozen, making me make a new replay. It's obviously not a big problem, since it's only a 10% chance, but sometimes it is pretty annoying that we have like a replay that's going well, but then you have that little bit of RNG at the end. But I'm not even sure how you can test if Magma Armor works or not. But, if you guys know, let me know. Next up is Executor. And just like with Cloyster, I already kind of explained everything there is to know about this. Executor just can't hurt Empoleon. It needs special drops to do anything. And yes, with special drops, Blizzard doesn't do as much and you're doing more damage. But why are you staying in the first place? This does make me want to comment though, while I show a replay with Mega Drain, because I just genuinely forgot Empoleon takes grass neutrally. It's literally a water starter. But even though it has Surf for Rhydon, I do often feel like while making these replays that Empoleon really wishes it can have Rest. I guess technically Empoleon does suffer from a 4 move swatch syndrome, and I guess with Blizzard it could be able to stand up the Rhydon, but I don't know. Like, Rest has a lot of merits. I'm sure a lot of you, such as Riscato and Sotina and probably Zach and Theus, will explain to me in the comments why Rest is probably better. If you can't tell this already by my plays in Generation Jumble, I naturally just lean towards offensive strategies, so I'd just rather have more offensive options. And when it comes to Surf, like, that's the difference between Rhydon being a great matchup or it could go either way. And I'm not sure why you would ever like deal with that in the first place. We can just have a move like Surf and just eliminate the issue altogether. Gengar. Luckily for Empoleon, Thunderbolt is a 3-hit KO. Obviously, crits are very scary, but at the same time, if Empoleon gets 1 crit, it's over. You can't really say the same for Gengar, although in that case it is a 2-hit KO, but also in that case, Gengar lost most of its health anyways. So yeah. I think that you just call that could go either way, but in some ways you can kind of see it as a good matchup for Empoleon. The opposite is here. Now granted, I could put this in could go either way, but I feel like Jolteon's crit rate is so high that I need to put in bad matchup. But it's like one of the bad matchups where Empoleon could win if gotten lucky, or if Jolteon's paralyzed, because that happens too in Gen 1. Next off is Jinx. And it's basically the same thing as Executor, but I guess slightly better since Jinx has a better crit rate. But even then, a crit is only doing 27%, and at some point, you're gonna get some special drops where you wish it wasn't a crit. It wouldn't have been a lot more damage there with 2 special drops, but I believe it's slightly more than with a crit. Doesn't really matter though, because Empoleon can handle it. It doesn't care about Blizzard either. In fact, it quad resists Blizzard, so you definitely don't want to use that. If you have Rest, I'm sure Rhydon's a problem, but hopefully this replay right here is a great example as to why Surf is so much better. Not to mention Surf is just a good move to spam if you don't know what they're switching into. Now, Slowbro, this is interesting. And this was also the replay that made me realize going for a third sword stance wasn't worth it. Because I did that, and with the max special, Slowbro was able to 2-hit KO Empoleon with Surf. And Empoleon can do the same with or without that last sword stance. So I would say pretty obviously it's more important to go for that. Yeah, but just know, if Slowbro has max special, it brings Empoleon to like 40... I don't know the exact number, but it doesn't matter. Brings it barely to the yellow. So, I think, would that be a good matchup, or could go either way? I guess could go either way, because with Paralysis, it is more likely to go in Slowbro's favor. But here's Starmie. If Starmie has Psychic and Blizzard, or Surf, Empoleon's fine. But there's always Thunderbolt. And to be honest, with Empoleon in the format, I think Blitzbolt Starmie is by far the best Starmie around. Having good Ice and Electric coverage is super good, especially here for Empoleon, having that super effective coverage. But even with that coverage, with the sword stance up, Empoleon can do decent damage. But Starmie has Recover. So now that I'm looking at this again, I'm thinking this should probably be a bad matchup instead of could go either way. Only 2 more are left. We got Victreebel and Zapdos. And both should be pretty straightforward. There's always Sleep and there's always Stun Spore. But Stun Spore just means Empoleon's probably going to kill you. And I don't really count Sleep as a viability for these matchups anymore. Since there's always stuff like Sleep Claws or just Sleep Sacks. And it's more important to judge how Pokemon like Executor, Jinx, or Victreebel do when there's not the option to put any to sleep. And if there isn't, Victreebel can 3-hit KO, while Empoleon always 2-hit KOs with Blizzard. So a good matchup for Empoleon. And last but not least, we have Zapdos. And it's about what you expect. Zapdos hits really hard, but luckily Empoleon does hit decently hard in its own right, which means Zapdos can't be careless. And it's really, really close to being a 2-hit KO. Blizzard might even be a 2-hit KO with a damage range. So, good for Empoleon. It means that sometimes it could be able to win, although in those situations it will be incredibly, incredibly tense. So I'd avoid it if able to. But overall, here's the tier list. I think this needs to be moved in the bad matchup. In fact, ironically, I think Starmie does a better job against Empoleon than Jolteon does. Kinda weird. But overall, I think this is pretty good. Maybe the Psychics could be put in good matchups instead. And obviously, Rhydon here could be changed depending on if you have Rest instead of Surf. I think the only other coverage options I could have gotten over would be Rock Slide and Hyper Beam. But Hyper Beam is really unnecessary. You don't need a high base power move like that as a finisher when you already are just boosting Earthquakes with Sword Stance. And Rock Slide is just inferior when trying to deal with Zapdos, because Empoleon has much lower attack, and Rock Slide is a much more base power move, so just go for Blizzard. Not to mention there's the really funny freeze chance. That's the reason why, unlike in other videos, I didn't bother showing the alternative moves. Outside of Rest exactly, I do not think anything else is even worth considering. Other than maybe Hydro Pump, but even then, like, I don't think you need more power with Hydro Pump. What do you think? Do you think Empoleon will be one of the best Pokemon in Gen 1 OU? Where do you think it would rank? Do you think it has the ability to maybe become the 4th best Pokemon, even surpassing in the Psychic types? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to join the Discord server. I've also recently opened up a Patreon. Nothing too special, but if you'd like to support me, that's just a way you can do it. But that's about it. Thank you all for watching. This is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.